Okay, let's move on to right here. So all of you guys know that 2 times the radius is the diameter. Always keep that in mind, which one they are talking about. Area is pi r squared and circumference is 2 pi r. So a lot of students kind of get confused between those two formulas. So area, they're talking about filling inside, okay? Whereas circumference is the one which is out. So be careful, depending on the question, you go for it. And just, kind of pause there and ask yourself once, which one is they, are they asking about area or circumference? That will take care of the silly mistake. And then comes your arcs and sectors. Okay, so that's very, very easy. It's all part of a total. So depending on what they are giving, you need to proceed by that. Okay, so if they give you the angle and talking about the circumference, so then it will be arc. So you just take the part of the angle, divide by the total of the angle. If arc is asked, you can find the arc when you measure the circumference. Or sometimes they talk about like pi area. Okay, so that's when you will compare the sector area with the total area of the circle. And the same thing can be extended for percentages as well. So they can ask like what percent of the circle is filled. So you can do percent over 100. You can solve it that way. Okay, that takes care of. Okay, so we'll kind of stay in the same realm of areas. So if there is a parallelogram, it's just base times height. Okay. So square and rectangle, all of you know, that's why I didn't write it. So it's just length times width. Okay, or S times S. So parallelogram is base times height. Trapezoid. Okay, so a lot of kids get confused here. So I always say, okay, everybody remembers a triangle, right? It's half base times height. So instead of one base, you will have 2 bases here. That's the only difference. Look at that. Okay, when you compare a new formula with the formula you know, it becomes very easy to remember. So half of B1 plus B2 times H. So if it is a cube, it is, there are 6 faces and S squared for each face. So 6 is 5. Okay, there is a triangle rule sitting here randomly. Okay, let's talk about it. So let's say they gave you 2 lengths. Okay, so let's say they said 10 and 6. And they say, can this form a triangle? Okay, that's when this rule applies. You can say, you can take it, or they might say 10, 6, and 13. Okay, so C is always the bigger side. So we can say add less than 13, subtraction is 4. Okay, so is 13 between 4 and 16? Yes, that means this will form a triangle. So if that's not the case, let's say if you get like an 18 here, then you cannot form a triangle by those 3 values they have given. Okay, as a bullet. Okay, so let's go here now. Angles, sum of the interior angles. Okay, so if it is a polynomial, it's just 180 times n minus 2. Okay, so if it is let's say 8 sides. Okay, so you will just do 180 minus 8 minus 2, 6. It will give you sum of the interior angle. Each interior angle will be, you will divide the number of angles by the sum. Sum of the exterior angles is always 360. Okay, then you can find each exterior angle by just dividing by the number of sides. Okay, so this is a very good one to review. Okay, so if you have just 1, 2, 3, okay, those are natural numbers. If 0 is added into that group, then they are called whole numbers. When negatives are added, it's called integers. When your fractions and decimals are added, then they are called rational numbers. And irrationals kind of sit by themselves, okay, the numbers which cannot be written as a fraction. But your rational and irrational together are called real numbers. Okay, and then your imaginary numbers kind of sits by himself, but everything together we can call them as complex numbers. So how you ask, like you can say a plus bi is a common complex number, but if this is 0, then every number is a complex number, isn't it? We can write, if it is a 6, we can write 6 plus 0i, like that. Okay, so everything can be called a complex number. Every number in the world is a complex number. Okay. Okay. 3 rules of roots. Okay, so if you have same root, okay, it's like having the same variable basically. Okay, so if this was 4x plus 28, we know it's 24x. The same way, 4 root 3 plus 20 root 3 is 24 root 3. So we can combine. So if it is a multiplication, we can just multiply them 4 times 8. Okay. If you want to factor the roots, you can divide this into factors. So 9 times 2. It's always a good idea to keep in mind the perfect squares, okay, so that we can get them out of the root. So 9 comes out as 3, and then 2 stays. Okay, coming to the slope of line, standard equation of the line, very important, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So how can we find the y-intercept? So basically, wherever it cuts the y, right, at this point right here. So you can see x is 0 there. So if there is an equation, you just make x equals 0, you can find what is b. Okay. So if slope is not given and 2 points are given, then you will have change in y over change in x, or rise over run will give you the slope. Midpoint is just the average of the 2 points. So x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Slope we can always remember as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So distance formula is square root of y2 minus y1 whole square plus x2 minus x1 whole square. Okay, so distance formula is nothing but your Pythagorean. Okay, so we are basically writing c equals root of a squared plus b squared. So how much is a? So whatever the distance is for y. How much is b? Whatever is distance for your x coordinates. So the divisibility rule. So we know all the numbers which are the factors of 0 are even, right? Like any number which is ending with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, like that. To check whether it's divisible by 3 or 9, you add all of the digits, and then that particular number should be divisible by 3 and 9. For 4, last 2 digits should be divisible by 4. For 6, you need to check the 2 and the 3. It should work for both. 5, it should end with a 5 or a 0. For 8, last 3 digits should be divisible by 8. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so some more roots and exponent rules here. Okay, I'm sure all of you know that, right? 4 squared equals 16. Root of 16 is 4. So we talked about that, right? So 16 to the power of half. So your square root can be written as to the power of half, which is 4. If it is cube root, we talked about that as well. To the power of 1 over 3, it's 5. So how to factor it? We have seen an example already. Okay, let's move on to matrices. So if you have the same size, okay, so then you can add them. So basically, you add the corresponding positions, okay? So 2 plus 7 is 9. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. 3 plus 5 is 8. 5 plus 2 is 7. 9 plus 4 is 8. So subtraction comes to the subtraction is done the same way. So one thing you have to pay attention is the sizes of the matrices will be the same. Okay, if it is 2 by 2, we need a 2 by 2. If it is 3 by 2, we need a 3 by 2. If it is 2 by 3, we need a 2 by 3, like that. So coming to the multiplication, it's a little tricky. So your what do you say? Horizontal number of elements should match with your vertical number of elements. Okay. So if you have 2 here, you need to have 2 here. Okay. And then you multiply the first one with the first one plus the second one with the second one. That's 1 times 2 plus 2 times 1. So that's how you get a 4. Okay. For the second element here, you do the same thing. This line will be multiplied with elements in this line. So 1 times 0 plus 2 times 2. So we have 4. 3 and 4 is multiplied with 2 and 1 again. Okay. So 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4 times 1 is 4. So 10. 3 and 4 is 2 and 0. So 3 times 0, 0 plus 4 times 2 is 8. So you get it. Okay, when we go to the standard deviation, it's better to talk about the normal distribution. So I will not talk about it. Oh, the standard deviation is right here. Let's try to do some. See. Okay. Okay, so standard deviation. So they're asking a lot of questions on standard deviation. So remember one thing, standard deviation is the spread from the mean of the values. Okay, so many times it can be a straightforward mean or an average mean, but it's how far data is spread. Okay? So if it is a normal distribution, 68% of the data will be between plus or minus 1. Okay, means plus or minus 1 times the standard deviation. 95% of the data is between plus or minus 2, this part. Okay, and when 99.7% of the data is between plus and minus 3.